What's going on, guys? It's Zex. Welcome back to the deck rotation. First, I want to thank you all for supporting the first episode, and for those of you that gave critiques on it, I appreciate it. I will take those to heart and continue to brew the series. Now, if you recall what I said last time, I said that some months of this series would have a theme. If you haven't figured out it by now, this first month will be focused on decks being released or supported in the upcoming release of DBT08 Minerva Rising in English. For this episode, we're taking a look at one of the most interesting lines being supported, Kheios. Originally released in DBT05, Kheios is a Dark 6 deck whose main gameplay focuses on having cards with different names in the soul, effectively making the deck a Highlander deck. I'm gonna be honest, there's not really much on Kheios outside of reading Craycross Epic. Heck, Kheios' wiki description is actually kind of bare. He's just promoted as a chill guy that has charisma that makes people follow him. He's just a chill guy with powers. That's all we got. Kheios is weird. Because of the way the deck can be built, most of the cards that aren't related to the Glitter storyline, aka Kheios and Mikani, are mostly one-ups meant to reach the deck's goal. Reach the 8 to 13 different soul threshold as fast as possible. So for this overview, I'm going to go over the Glitter cards, and then point out a couple cards that help the deck since the Set 5 release. Starting with the main grade 3. A Forging Fane's Kheios has two skills. The first, for a Counterblast and a discard, lets you scry 3, at which point you choose one to go to hand, one to call to the field, and the last one gets sent to the soul. It's a really good search effect that ends up being a strong +1 because it's electric draw, call, and soul charge. The second skill is more controversial. On attack, you give a unit on the field plus 10k if you hit the 8 different names, but you give the entire board the 10k buff if you hit the 13 count. The issue with this skill is that for all the hard work you need to do, only for it to be just a basic board power up is very underwhelming. Also, him not getting the power from his own skill kinda irks me. That is where the grade 3 Mikani comes in. Going over his second skill first, as it's relevant to the moment, he restands when the Vanguard attacks and you have hit the 8 different soul threshold, but goes to the soul at the end of your turn. This is a card you're primarily buffing up with Kheios, as he is your primary method of pressure in the deck. Opening 2 of them means 5 free attacks consistently. The first skill is interesting as well. For a counter in Soul Blast, you get to retire any card whose grade is equal to the card you Soul Blasted out for the skill. It doesn't come up all the time, but when it does, it's nice to have. Now the question is, if Mikani is so important, how do you get him out of your soul? Well, this is where the new grade 1 Mikani comes in, and this card is crazy. It has 3 skills. The first is that whenever it's placed, you soul charge 1. Pretty simple skill. The Insanity Hammer comes in the second and third skills. For the second, you can shove him to the soul to call out the grade 3 Mikani, meaning that Mikani's multi-attack is almost never offline. Especially when you get to the Glitter skill. And that skill is that as long as it's in the soul with Cardfight Vanguard, it counts as a different name. This card alone fixes a lot of the consistency plaguing Kheios, and somewhat increases the ceiling of the deck. I mean, it's just really good. Does a lot of things, and yeah. For the honorable mentions, with the eventual release of the Chronojet Stride deck set, you gain access to 3 PGs with different names, as Arlem now comes into play. I mean, that's always nice to make sure that your deck that needs multiple names has 3 of your critical piece have different names. So on that note, Quan Lu is a very powerful guard restrict, as it turns Mikani into turn ride grade 1 guard restrict, which can be devastating. Friend of the Netherworld Ling is a card from the Dredrewel trial deck that chalks top 2 for selective soul charge. And lastly, we come to the promo order that checks the top 5 and soul charges anything with a different Kheios name. And then if you've hit the 8 threshold of different names, you get to call 1 card out for soul and then give a Mikani on board plus 10k. It is pretty much your big power soul charger that gives you a plus on the board and gives your Mikani already more power to attack later. The ratios for this deck are 4 grade 3 Kheios, 4 each of both grade 3 and grade 1 Mikani, 2 each of Amazing Frost, which helps fix awkward soul problems, 2 of one who governs Kheios, 1 of each PG because thank you Chronojet, and 1 of literally everything that gives free soul charging or goes into soul somehow. So long as you feel comfortable with the choices, it doesn't really matter. As for your trigger lineup, it's a rainbow lineup for the simple fact that you want as many names as possible and that we are in Japan. I'll explain later. Alright everybody, so this first game is up against Chronojet, and well, if you know what Chronojet is, you know it's easily the best deck in the format, so yeah, this is going to be a hard one. So we're going to start the game. They do the normal thing, they get the amazing gear in the crest. I discard Makani for Kheios and then call Gungram to get a soul charge. 16 goes straight in. They lose a jet, but that doesn't really matter. They go into smoke gear, they attack, we just let them go. No trigger, we hit a heal, and we draw the over trigger, which is always not great. So now we don't really have that pressure for the attacks, which is going to hurt later. Got a red jet and everything. So the problem is with Kheios in this matchup is to really like fight Jet, you need to have like an early game to take advantage of them just not having a lot of like potential early game, right? It's always the thing with OG decks. However, Kheios just can't really do that. They really want to keep as many of their normal pieces in as possible and then slam face, which this is probably a pretty decent turn, as it just like, you know, we swing in, they lose 2 PGs, 21, 20, and then we just soul charge. Now they're going to stride into Fate Rider, and Fate Rider sends back Selfish Engraver. They kind of make a interesting play here because they probably could have sent back Makani to prevent me from just getting out the Grave 3 Makani earlier, but it doesn't really matter, as you'll see. So they call out an Air Resonance, which this thing is kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie. So they whiff on the triple drive, meaning my PG was basically useless. They hit 5, they call us there, and I hit the over trigger, we end turn, and I Persona Ride into another Kheios, which is okay. But now we use the great one to go into the Makani. I use Kheios' first skill to min out into a very awkward draw, which I do this primarily so I can actually get into my 13 soul, and then I will call over. At least I think I do. I actually, yes, I call over for Makani to actually get the 5 attacks. So we swing, they hit a defensive, which is not great. That comes issue. I hit a draw and nothing really there. If I hit the draw then the front, maybe we actually push for a much more lethal turn. But now they're in next stage, and this is going to get painful. So they send back Gungram, which I will take that. They'll discard for the jet for the next stage skill. They'll call out Argandia, and upstream they'll attack 38 IPG, dropping the draw. They hit heal front, which is like kind of worst case scenario, because that means a lot of numbers to guard here. Which, you know, considering that I have to take one, I take one and we lose. Yeah. Alright, now we're on game 2, and we are going against the brand new deck Grand Fear. They have unfortunately mulliganed into their over trigger, which is good for us. And so they're actually running the roaming prison dragon strategy, which I will say is actually not that bad. It actually is kind of somewhat actually like terrifying in some ways. Though we hit the over trigger, which, you know, that is always great. Over trigger is really impactful for Kheios because the alternative is you have no pressure. And so they keep on doing this to get their plat token stuff, hit offensive, and they still can't hit over. So that means Kheios is now grade 3. I call out Amandine, Swirler into another soul charge, Makani into a soul charge, which means Swirler is at 18. I discard Selfish Engraver to search out in Syrie in hand. I have to call it PG because the other card was probably like a crit. It's like, well, at that point, I should just, keep one there. Then Syrie into a draw, which I draw into another, Persona Ride, which, okay, that's cool. I call him Mikani, and then we just go to battle. 13, they block. 21, restand Mikani. 23, they hit with the over trigger, which means the no pass. Draw heal trigger into the set. Both of them can attack even over a defensive. They take 4. They ride Grand Fear, and they do Grand Fear things. They call out the Degenerate Rose, and they start stacking plant tokens, and they call Rolling Prison, which gets a crit. Then they eat for add a sticky. Yeah, there's just, Grand Fear seems kind of actually like a fun deck, which I do want to try out. We'll probably get to it around when it comes to set 9? Set 9's release, so be on the lookout for that one. On that way, we Persona Ride. We still have the the over trigger active, so we still get that. We get Quenlu off the top, and Quenlu does Quenlu things. We put Quenlu's Soul. We give Syrie the plus 2k and guard restrict. We soul charge for indicate arrow, and because we don't have this Mikani, we just have to swing face, and yeah, we hit a front though, which is nice. 36, they hit draw, so they go into Grand Fear, into Persona Ride, and do it again. Loop out into getting Roman Prison out to get another crit, which again, with a Persona Ride means it's, crit actually is pretty decently lethal. And you just stack up for Rose and swing 38. I take this one because at the very least there, I hit 2 defensives, which is outstanding. Which then they restand the Roaming Prison, who's 35, who is now 50. They take 20 there, 33, 43. I guard and intercept, and with that, it took a second. I draw. I top deck. It's probably the best card in my deck, Persona Ride, and we just win at this point. Mikani calls. I don't use the soul charge. I use it to instead get out the grade 3 Mikani. Then I will call Ling to search the top 2, soul charge, put a bottom, and yeah, I think we just go in and just swing face. 23, 51. Everyone on the board gets the power. 61, and it is currently a 1 to pass and hit a crit, and that is the game. Even through the heal. Let's go. It's time for my final thoughts. With all the cards released since DBTO5, Kheios has gained a massive consistency boost. Adding the grade 1 Mikani in the promo order, and you are always going to be able to hit the 8 different soul count with pretty much ease. Not to mention the deck probably has the cheapest multi-attack in standard presently. It is so close to reaching its potential. However, I feel that there are 2 things that are holding this deck back. First, Kheios' Highlander effect, while much easier to obtain but back on release, still just doesn't feel worth it. Because it's just a board power buff, a lot of the pressure really comes from Mikani, so on those few times you don't have it, you're basically useless. The second issue is that the trigger lamp is not naturally optimal as I feel that Kheios really would love. Because I feel like Kheios would really love crits. Which brings up the statement I said earlier, we are in Japan. I tried to build these lists based to be as global friendly as possible, meaning that this deck loses one of the big positives gains from being over there, which is that there are multiple variants of promo crits that can be used tournament league wise, meaning that their fronts have to be ran, and because it's just how most of all your rear guards are just expendable, it doesn't feel as powerful with the fronts. Overall, I think Kheios has definitely gotten better, and you know, that's always the best thing to say about a deck. However, it's still not there yet, and I wish it could be. But that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think. And as always, if you like more TCG content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.